So let's see. Hey, I do not hear myself, so that's not good. Let's see. Do I see myself? Do I hear myself? Hey, welcome to the first episode of Why Voting Matters. My name is Omega, and I help everyday people demystify politics so that you can vote with confidence and build an America for us all. I will be sharing information. I'll be sharing my take on the news, analysis on current affairs, and also providing education on politics, the importance of politics, and why politics matters. Now, why do I feel like I can do that? I have 20 years of political experience from the school board level to actually working on federal races, mainly local races, school board, very hyper local races for the first decade. And then about a decade ago, I actually went to work in the California state legislature and was a district director for my state senator and am a political coordinator for a very large organization that runs politics in the state of California. And so because of that, I have learned a lot and understand that a lot of times people don't feel connected to the system. And when people don't feel connected to the system, they don't engage. And so I want to take this channel and this opportunity to help people, everyday people who, just understand politics, understand what's going on, understand what they hear on the news, so that when it's time, one, you feel empowered to vote, but two, you really understand what you're voting for and how to cut through the noise and the BS, right? So today I want to talk to you about why judges matter. There was a Supreme Court case announcement around, Lord, I forgot that fast. There's been multiple. So there was DACA. There was they refused to hear the death penalty case, so the lower court ruling stays in place. A woman's right to choose. So there was a law passed in the state of Louisiana that said basically in order for a clinic to provide abortion services, they had to have privileges at a hospital, excuse me. And because of that, it just limits access for women who need to make that choice. And so, but that's not what I want to talk about in specifics. That's just one of the cases. Another one that the Supreme Court decision that recently came through is around DACA. It was a technical decision, but because of that decision, people who are called dreamers are allowed to stay in the United States unless there's another case brought forth. There was also a case the Supreme Court didn't hear. They declined to hear around the death penalty. And so now, as a result, federal death penalties are able to be reinstated. Why am I talking about the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court judges and their decisions? Because I've gotten this question a few times, actually, that says, Omega, look, I need to understand why the Supreme Court matters, what any president has to do with that. Like, why does that all come into play? And specifically, that's come up because people have been, quite frankly, very, very frustrated with the Republican Party, the Senate Republicans in particular, myself, one of them, and some of what feels like unwillingness to hold our president accountable. And it's tied to the Constitution. Why, how the checks and balances happen in the Constitution and the different powers of the different offices. And so today I want to talk specifically about why judges matter. So first, how someone becomes a Supreme Court justice. What the Constitution says, and it's in Article 3 of the Constitution, is that the president has to appoint a person, him or her, and the Senate confirms. And so, other than that, there is no other requirement. That's specifically what the Constitution says. Um, so that's one area, the Supreme Court. That also applies to federal courts of different kind. Bankruptcy court. It applies to for people who are in unions. It applies to the National Labor Relations Board. It applies to federal courts. Period. The appellate courts and the different district circuit courts that you hear about. The president makes those appointments, and the Senate confirms. And so, if you are a conservative, which is what the Republican Party, aligns with, and as well as the president, you're a conservative, and you've not been happy with the trajectory of the country. For example, if you're opposed to a woman's right to choose, if you're opposed to workers' rights to organize and form a union, if you are opposed to the Voting Rights Act, and things like affirmative action, if you are opposed to criminal justice reform and law enforcement, police reform, if you are opposed to those things, one of the ways to solidify that is to appoint judges. The reason it is a way to solidify that is because judicial appointments are lifetime appointments. It's not like the president appoints a judge and they're there for the term of office that the president holds. They're there for life. And so the court's role is to interpret the law and to determine whether or not other laws are constitutional. And so if you want to affect change and change the tide of society over an extended period of time, quite frankly, a generation, if not more than one generation, you want to stack judges. You want judges who align with your values because you know they're going to be there longer than you. And so how does this come into play with the current administration and the Republicans, quite frankly? Specifically Mitch McConnell. So Mitch McConnell knows that he's not going to be there forever, but he wants to solidify certain principles or certain values of the Republican Party. Small government. They, also, don't want to reform the police. They're very pro-police. And pro-police in its current state. I'm not anti-police, but I do believe that law enforcement needs to be reformed. Period. We don't need militarization in our police force, but that's a whole nother conversation. So if you want to solidify those things, if you want to get rid of labor unions, because you know that labor unions are one of the best, last best defenses against corporate money. And in that balance in politics. If you want to do those things, one of the best things to do to make sure that those decisions last beyond you is to get the president to appoint the judges who go your way. And so, we know that, other senators, congressmen, and women, and the president have terms. Now, the president has term limits, but members of Congress don't. But even with that, they can lose an election. And so if you want to solidify things like Louisiana tried to do with the abortion case, then you would want a Supreme Court justice who aligns with you. Now, it's not guaranteed, right? Because there have been examples. John Roberts, who is the Chief Justice, is a Republican. He's more of a moderate Republican, but he is a Republican. And so he does lean conservative because that's who he is. But there are times when just the right thing is the right thing and it transcends party. And then the Constitution is the Constitution, and it is supposed to transcend party. And so there are times when appointed justices don't rule the way that you thought they were going to rule. And right now, that's pissed off a lot of conservatives because they had a clear expectation of the president that he would appoint people who would take away a woman's right to choose, who would make it the path to citizenship, which is already very hard in this country, much harder for people who, are Latino or come from a country where there are a lot of Black people. So that's why, in a nutshell, that judges are important. And so judges matter because that I'm giving you very big picture on the federal. Now think about it on the court, at the court level. Um, Judges decide criminal cases. And criminal cases can, impact people for the rest of their life. And so we're going to do a lot of videos and have a lot of conversations, but I want to lay some foundation down so that we're hopefully at least talking, apples and apples, and we're all talking the same language. So in a nutshell, judges are important because, one, they're there for life. Two, we want judges who actually believe in the rule of law and aren't partisan. They're supposed to really be nonpartisan, even though that's not always possible. And three, the decisions that they make impact generations. It's not easy to get cases to the Supreme Court. It's not supposed to be super easy to get cases to the Supreme Court. And so that's why it's an impact for generations. So I hope that you found this information valuable. And I would love to hear from you and really, hear what kind of questions you have. I will share information from the news, analysis of what's going on. We'll get more into different strategies. I plan on having guest speakers and all kind of stuff. But right now, I just want to give you the foundation just to make sure that we're on the same page as we really start breaking the stuff down. So I hope that you found this valuable. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments, and talk to you soon.